What time is it? It's time for another Every Other Wednesday.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone, to Every Other Wednesday. My name is Richard Haddon. I'm an author and speaker. I wrote Contented Cows Still Give Better Milk and some other things like that. And I speak on employee engagement, leadership, and all about the new world of work. I live in Jacksonville, Florida, and that's where I am today. Michael.
My name is Michael Kirk, coming to you from Canmore, Alberta, in the Canadian Rockies. I speak on workplace culture, leadership, and humor in the workplace. My latest of 9 books is Small Moments, Big Outcomes, How Leaders Create Cultures That Fuel Extraordinary Results. And today is June 10th, 2026, if you're just joining and confused as to what year it is. And the theme days for today are Ballpoint Pen Day, to celebrate the fabulous invention of the ballpoint pen. And then 3 food theme days today. This could be your lunch or dinner. Iced tea day, egg roll day, and frosted cookies day for dessert. Sanjay.
My name is Sanjay Nath. I too am a speaker and author based in Toronto, Ontario. I speak on leadership and performance, and I'm best known by a concept called the 10-80-10 principle, which is all about focusing on your strengths. And for those who care, I'm just finishing my doctorate on proving this whole 10-80-10 thing. And eventually what I'm going to do, once I get the proposal of my research, I'm going to harass people to go and do a simulation, an online simulation to help me do research so I can poke at you like lab rats.
Oh, very cool.
Are we going to have to call you Dr. Sanjay when this is all over?
I'm making my children call me Dr. Father.
Dr. Dad.
No, I didn't say Dr. Dad. I said Dr. Father. It's more formal.
Oh, yeah.
I like Dr. Dad. I like the alliteration in Dr. Dad, though.
Yeah.
Sounds like a
sitcom.
sitcom.
It's a little bit like Mr. Mom. Yeah. Carol is offering her congratulations, and it presents a good opportunity to remind everyone to change their default on the chat to everyone, because we really do want to hear from people today. And so I have a question. Gents and audience, do you want to hear what the question is? Think back about to when you first started your career, when you first started working. I don't mean necessarily like your first job flipping hamburgers or something. That was one of my first jobs. But think about when you first started your career. What is something that is acceptable today that would have shocked your boss when you first started your career? Today we're going to be thinking about how communication standards and norms and other things like that in the workplace have changed. And we're going to be careful not to get on a nostalgic kind of, it was great back then. Those are the good old days. We're not going to go that route. But it's just interesting to think about some of the things that have changed. So what is something that is acceptable today in the workplace that probably would have shocked your boss when you first started your career?
Yeah, Stephen's got a great one.
Okay. So Stephen says it would be weird to congratulate people for investing in. No, that's not what he was answering. Calling your boss by their first name. Yeah, definitely. Oh, yeah. Not wearing a tie.
Wearing jeans.
Wearing jeans to work in an accounting firm.
By the way,
it's so funny that you talk about not wearing a tie. I have to wear a tie later today for a different kind of a non-work event. And it needs to be red, and I don't have one because I've thrown away most of my ties.
Interesting that Steve was saying calling his boss by his or her first name. Right there, there's the thing that's changed too. We now say there.
There, yeah.
Grammatically, it was incorrect to say there back in the day.
Yeah.
It's so funny when I took over in a senior management position, I came across these old files in the filing cabinet, and everything, it was so formal. All these memos to Mr. blah 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 and
yes,
blah blah blah, and I'm going, oh my god.
And look at Carol tongue in cheek, even having a female boss back then.
Yeah. I think, don't you think, I do, that things were even a little more formal in Canada than in the US at that time? Maybe not so much now.
More formal?
I remember the formal, yeah, the Mr. and all of that.
We're always less formal than you guys. You guys,
yeah, really? I think the opposite.
Yeah,
okay,
sure. Mike on this one.
All right, we won't debate it because you guys live there. I'm only a sometime visitor. Yeah. So what else, folks? What else was different? Sanjay, we were talking in the green room. You mentioned one about like mental health days.
Yeah. saying, yeah, I need a mental health day, like they would have been like, what are you talking about? Or even something is, I have a meeting with a counselor, I have a meeting with a therapist. Like a
Yeah.
lot of that.
Yeah. You wouldn't have talked about that then.
Or can we be flexible with my schedule? Can I leave early, an hour early, because I have to pick up my kids from?
Yeah.
You're even talking about your kids, but you have kids. It's like, it's almost like you pretend.
Yeah.
Working from home.
Staying home when you're sick. Yeah. Back then, bring your germs.
Well, it was a badge of honor, right? You went 37 years without missing a day. You infected 1,400 people, but you didn't miss a day.
Yeah. Playing cornhole in the office. Who gets to play cornhole? I know people do. We don't play cornhole in my office.
I love that one.
Yeah. What else? What are some other things that think
again,
people.
To piggyback off what Carol's saying, like you look at a lot of these startups, a lot of these tech companies, and they have foosball, and they have there's a lot of play interaction, or Zen gardens and that kind of stuff, and all that would have been very considered flaky or not an appropriate place in the workplace or whatever.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, we can all think of things that have changed, but if we want to focus this on communication, I think probably the conversation will stray away from that a little bit, and that's fine. But just kind of thinking about the rules of communication, standards, norms, practices around communication at work, things. I think it's naive to say things haven't changed. So things have changed. I think the problem is if people who haven't noticed these changes. And so they keep doing things the way it used to be done, or they're not keeping up with how things are now. I think they create problems they don't even realize. What do you think? I mean, I think a lot of it is just being aware of kind of what is done these days.
For sure. And a lot of this is around expectations too, how expectations of employees have changed. Expectations in terms of cultures have changed. So different expectations that I think especially leaders need to be aware of, that of course things change and we have to keep up to those changes.
Yeah.
And I also think it's important to note that, sometimes we look back or as we progress forward, we go, oh, we got it wrong before we're getting it right. No, we're not. You're going to be wrong. We're wrong now too. We just don't recognize it. So give it 20 years. People are going to look back and go, you guys had video calls on Zoom? What was that about?
Yeah.
I look at it in terms of and I made this reference. A lot of the sitcoms, you look at your Archie Bunkers, your Three's Company, that in their heyday were considered hilarious. Looking back now, people go, "Oh my goodness, not appropriate." I look at something like Big Bang Theory right now. It's considered hilarious. Give it 20 years. People are like, "Oh, you're making fun of people with mental health or OCD or whatever."
Yeah, things change. I think the point I'm taking from this is that things change, and we need to be aware of that and respond to that awareness. Stephen says having a beard as a chef or a wait staff in a fast food or any kind of a restaurant. Yeah, you're right. Santiago says teenagers being in management. That wouldn't have happened, but now it's kind of like if you can lead, if you can do it, do it. So, what have you noticed, Mike and Sanjay, about just how we communicate in the workplace, and what are some things that are different there?
Well, again, to the formal argument is that things have become more casual, and it used to be very, very siloed, right? You had your work life, family life, and never the two shall meet.
And when you said siloed, I guess the first thing I thought was you don't speak to people outside your chain of command. You don't speak to people outside of your department. The whole idea of matrix organization was so foreign that it was considered inappropriate for you to talk to someone that you might work with and depend on, but if they're not in your department, you don't talk to them. You have to go through the proper channels.
Yeah.
Another thing is, I think about things like public criticism. I mean, and I know that still goes on, but I think there's some negative judgment around that. Now, I think most of us are aware, and even though that still goes on, it probably went on a lot more in days of yore, where you would just and just kind of ridicule someone or chastise someone in a meeting. And today, I think we're a little more circumspect about that, which I think is positive.
For sure. There's the traditional role of management is that it's a power thing, right? So if you yelled at them, you show them who's boss, you took it to them. In fact, I did a fair amount of work with this one organization, and they were still stuck in that module. And that idea of, you do it because I say so, and there was no questioning authority, and you're an obedient little boy, you got a lollipop and a 30-year watch at the end of your career. As things have evolved, there's much more transparency, like communication goes both ways, right? The evaluations, before it was your boss just yelled at you how you were inadequate, and now it's more of a give me some feedback. A boss might ask, what can I do to help you better?
Yeah, it's shifted. It's shifted as we know, and we talk about all the time, from more of a top-down command and control kind of leadership to a coaching model leadership, right? And so the language is reflected in that. I think so many things have changed in terms of communication. I think just from the technology, I mean texting people, which can be good and bad and lead to issues, texting workers off hours, those kind of expectations that we now have to talk about. When are you off the clock? What are we doing to help employees manage their burnout and stress so they don't feel like they're on 24/7, because communication now allows us to be on 24/7 the way it was.
Well, yeah, it's because the technology allows it, and so we do. I can remember early in my career, there was no texting, there was no cell phones, it was your landline phone. If my boss called me at home off hours, it was because it was a big deal, and that did happen a time or two, but not often. And when it was, boy, it got my attention.
Yeah.
And now it's just, a quick, casual question.
Yeah, I find that interesting because the expectation is, more beyond the 9 to 5, and I'm just using that as a traditional. But the expectation beyond the 9 to 5 is higher, but I don't think we've, for the most part, lessened the 9 to 5 expectation to compensate for the outside of 9 to 5. What I mean by that is,
yes, please explain. Sanjay.
Yeah. So, we have much more flex time these days.
Right. Yeah. The day is clearly not as constructed as it once was.
No, but I still think there's the expectation. The expectations increase. You're essentially going to be here 9 to 5 for the most part, and we're going to reach out to you.
Yeah.
As opposed to, because we're reaching out to you, we're going to be much more malleable and flexible with this 9 to 5. I think it's just overall added. It hasn't transformed.
Yeah. I'm curious, is there legislation in Canada that speaks to this at all? Because there is in some countries, I know in France in particular, and perhaps others, that it becomes a criminal offense for you to.
I have a list of some of the countries in my book. I think it's quite a few now in Europe.
Do we have to buy your book to learn this, or?
We do. Yes, it's available at all fine bookstores.
Yes.
So there are more and more countries. In Canada, we do not have that, but I think there is increasing awareness around that. And I think too, just on a different topic that just popped into my head too. I think we talk a lot more about things that would have been perceived to be off limits, the kind of softer stuff that we call the softer stuff, like feelings.
Like what?
We talk about emotions at work now.
Yeah. How do you feel about that?
I don't think we did 30, 40 years ago.
No, we didn't. And I'm thinking, we talk about emotional intelligence now and psychological safety. Psychological what? People would have said when I first started working. And now I think that's a positive. There's awareness of that, and not everybody is really good at it yet. But I think if we didn't even know about it, we would never get good at it.
Oh, absolutely. And on that front too, the kind of partner word of psychological safety, I think of belonging, and so being more aware of our language. The words that we use, the choice of words we use, I think there's greater awareness around that, so that we are just a little more sensitive to making sure everyone on our team, everyone in our organization feels like they belong and feels like they are included here.
So there's also a lot of pushback against that, where people say, oh, you're going too far and you're making too big a deal of that. I, I think that's for people for whom that is not an issue. And then
I was about to go there, which is, yeah, the pendulum tends to swing from one extreme of stupidity to the other, right? So before it was like, you can't have emotions, you must be a robot, right? And you must turn it off when you get home, and when you get to work, you turn off the other side. And in fact, it's that show that you've mentioned before, Mike, about a guy who something to do with work and turning off his emotions and
oh yeah,
Severance, where they've separated work life from personal life.
Right.
So you have no awareness of your two different personalities.
And that's kind of what it was supposed to be. And again, I don't think that's healthy. But at the same time, too, to go and spend the first 3 hours every morning of getting, detailed therapy from your manager, your supervisor, I don't think is helpful either. I think we need to understand and appreciate that people are whole body, which means they have a work life and they have a personal life and they have a financial life and they have a social life, and they're an integrated person. And we should respect and understand all the aspects, but we don't need to go as deep on all those other areas as we do for, say, in the work area. That's predominantly why we're there. But in order to function properly as a viable member of the team, we need to address those other areas, especially if it's affecting their performance.
Yeah. I think another thing that we see more of, and we started to get on this a few minutes ago, I want to finish it up a little bit, and that is just, I think employees are saying, tell me more. They want an explanation for things. I can remember when I first started working, you didn't question your boss, you just did it. Mine is not the reason why, mine is just to do or die. But now I think people do, oh, okay, well, sure, but tell me why. Why are we they want some justification for that. I think that's also is a positive, because I think it puts more critical thinking around things. Now, it can slow things down. And there are times when a leader might just say, listen, you're going to have to trust me on this. We got to do this. I can't give you all the details right now. Now, if they have a history of being trustworthy, then that's probably going to go down a lot better than if they don't have a history of being trustworthy and say, trust me on this. And people are asking, give me more, be more transparent.
Well,
tell me,
to me, that's just common sense in anything, is to explain the why, whether we're talking to customers, clients, or our employees. It's treating people like adults, really. And I think we do a better job at that than we used to.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what we're talking about, this whole open lines of communication. But I also believe, too, it's very situationally based, right? Our approach is going to be different. If you're talking about, and that's one of the problems with having more inclusive decision-making is time. And sometimes you can't afford the time to do that. Like if the building is on fire, we're not going to sit down and go, okay, who should call 911? Who's got the best cell plan, right? Or how much does it cost you? And in that situation, it's
sure,
Richard, freaking call 911. Mike, grab the children, right? Like that. It's going to be much more autocratic, situationally based. But if we have the time and the resources to do so, you're going to get much healthier decisions, and you're going to get much stronger buy-in, which therefore is going to increase the organizational culture when you can actually sit down and get the input and the feedback from as many people as you can through healthy communication.
And thus save time in the long run. To circle back to your
Now, Sanjay, you mentioned the children. That brings up another point.
What are children doing in the workplace?
What are children doing in the workplace?
This isn't the 1800s. We're not in coal mines. What the heck?
No, they're cheap labor. That's what they're doing in the workplace.
No, but think about today. I think it's probably much more common today, number one, for people to acknowledge that their children do influence, their flexibility and their availability and all of that. Bringing, people bringing their children to work when they need to, not bring your child to work day so they can see what you do. That's not it. But I think, if someone had a child care issue and they needed to have their not toddler, not somebody crawling around eating crumbs off the floor, but a functional a functional small human there sitting quietly in the corner. I think that is much more acceptable today than it would have been at one point. Although I will tell you, 40 plus years ago, I worked in an office where there was somebody who had a child, and it didn't hurt that her husband was the president of the company, but she brought her infant and put this child in a playpen in the corner, and the child. I would sometimes go around and look for proof of life. This this child was so quiet and well behaved, but that was also a workplace that was much more informal, and it was kind of people. It was unusual for its time,
Yeah.
and I think today though that could happen.
You look at the number of businesses now that include daycare as part of in the same workplace, right? They're recognizing the integration of personal life, and especially for young working parents, how stressful that is. So you're going to have better employees if you do some of these things. Carol mentioned dogs, the number of companies that now allow dogs in the workplace because for a lot of dog owners, dogs are a huge issue, and even offer things like dog benefits, dog insurance.
Yeah,
these are certainly.
Carol says, "Bring your dog to work, leave your children at home." Yes. Yeah. I also would just want to acknowledge Stephen's comment about age. I don't know. Stephen says my students send me emails. Hey, Steve. Older students say, "Hello, professor." I don't know if it's an age thing.
I've experienced the opposite of that, actually, Stephen. In fact, just recently I was working on a presentation, and there were these young students that, as part of their program, was helping out with the organization. So they were all in their early 20s, and I had to keep telling them, please
don't call me
Mr. Kerr. Michael, I'm Michael.
Yeah.
He sounds so old. And so often when I deal with young 20-somethings, they revert to calling me Mr. Kerr.
My guess is that's more a function of upbringing, right?
Just upbringing. And two, I think maybe the position, maybe in an academic setting, as Stephen is talking about, as opposed to a business setting. But I mean, culture, that is an artifact of a culture of an organization, is how people address each other. Is it still, Mr., Ms., or is it everybody's on first name basis kind of thing?
Yeah. And again, that was brought up earlier, it was much more formal. Your boss was Mr. Kerr, it wasn't Mike. And I don't. Okay. So some of these changes obviously are good or gooder. I would say some of them don't necessarily help. They just kind of morphed. Like, for example, and maybe I'm showing my age now, but texting.
What age?
Exactly, right? Texting etiquette, the OMGs and the LOLs and all that, no more punctuation and such. Does that help? I'm not a fan, but
that's showing your age. Yeah.
See, exactly.
And I'm older than you, and I do use emojis and LOLs and all of that kind of stuff. I think it's just personal preference.
LOL and emojis is one thing, but I'm talking about the way they type and the way they write. It's not full sentences, and it's like everything's misspelled.
Well, people who study language say, language has always evolved. It is evolving much faster now because of some of the technology, and it's going to, you're not going to be able to push that one back into it. You're not going to get all that toothpaste back in the tube. It's gonna.
I am with Sanjay on this. I think it's a lack.
Yeah, you're both showing your age. Yeah,
I am. It's a lack of professionalism and just. And I think there's a difference, and I talk about this, right? There's a difference between being more conversational, which we clearly are as a society in most workplace cultures. And I think it's important to be genuine, to be authentic, to be conversational, to be fun, to add some humor. That is all absolutely cool. But at the same time, being conversational doesn't mean we're sloppy, that we're unprofessional with how we're communicating. It's about just communicating effectively, being clear, right? So that we're effective.
The communication texting stuff. What bugs me about it isn't the language; it's that I don't think they know better. That to me is like, if you know how to spell a word, but you're trying to be colorful and clever and all that stuff, and you misspell it, or you actually know how to do punctuation, but you're choosing not to because you're trying to be informal, fun, cool, hip, whatever it is, fine. But if you just think that's the way to do it, I go, it is. And again,
because if it bleeds into more formal methods of communication, like proposals and and contracts and things like that, sign here on the dotted line, LOL. No, you can't have that. So some of it, I think it's just more. I like what you said, Mike. We become more conversational and not maybe not as formal and not as stilted or stuffy as we once were. But I also wonder if the new communication norms include a certain level of incivility that we could do with, we could do a little bit more civility in some of that. I talk with people who you say, gosh, I got this really, really terse, curt text or a Teams message or a Slack message or whatever channel they're using from someone. And in the old days, before the pandemic, essentially, we would have talked about that. And now I just get, somebody just shoots, no, we're not doing that, or no, something like that, rather than taking the time to, oh, let's talk about this. And I think that is not an improvement. That, if we've lost some sense of civility in the workplace.
Yeah.
Oh, here's another thing. What about this? Didn't exist a few years ago. And that is, what is this idea of putting things on people's calendar?
Oh, I hate when people do that.
I know. Well, and imagine, the three of us are relatively insulated from that and protected from that.
Yeah.
People who work in larger organizations, I hear this from them all the time, that someone thinks that their calendar is just their playground. My calendar is your playground to do whatever you want in it. And, before you would call somebody, I don't know, it was inefficient. You'd call or whatever. You say, hey, are you available on such and such a date? I know. Let's see. Well, when are you available? And now it's just, I'm just going to put, hey, it looks to me like it's free. I'm going to put it on
I'm going to
your
put
calendar.
Richard down for a root canal Friday afternoon at 2:00. Yeah. That is weird.
Carol says, keep your mitts off my calendar.
Yeah,
I'm with you on that one, Carol. I don't make my calendar public. I don't want, because here's the other thing too. If I don't want to do something, I just want to say no. I don't want to have to, well, your calendar's open. So here's in the latest level of spam, there are, I don't know if you guys are getting these, but I've been getting them now for maybe 6 months, 8 months, where people invite me to upsell me on some video call thing. And it drives me nuts.
They'll put that, they'll send me a calendar invite spam.
Right. And it shows up in my calendar as tentative and I have to accept it or delete it. It drives me bonkers.
Yeah.
And on principle, I would never buy from any of these people just on that.
I know. Don't they? And why don't they know that? That's what I'm.
I have one right in this time slot sitting there, a tentative call.
Well,
that has populated.
Don't get the call.
My Wednesdays at this time.
But you know what? To your point, Richard, why? Because they made a sale. And if they made a sale and they pissed off 1,000 people, they're focusing on the one sale they made.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, I've got a question for you, Mike, since you're known worldwide for your involvement and understanding of humor in the workplace.
Yes.
How has that changed? Or has it?
Oh, I think it's changed. It's changed in a lot of ways. On the one hand, it is way more acceptable, and it's become normalized that humor and fun in the workplace, for the most part, there's still lots of exceptions, but for the most part, and I've certainly seen this, and there's statistics-based evidence that backs this up, that more and more companies are accepting of it, normalizing it, want it included in their workplace culture, feature it as one of their core values. Believe in the power of humor to make a difference in their workplace, in their customer service, in the morale, and in all that good stuff. There is also, at the same time, I think, more awareness of some of the dangers of humor. So just being way more sensitive and aware than we would have been 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, in terms of what is off limits. So yes, we want you to have fun. We want you to laugh. We can goof around in meetings, but hey, these are the boundaries. These are the limits.
I can remember that when there didn't used to really be boundaries.
No, for sure.
And if you tried to put up a boundary, then you were being the stick in the mud, and it was on you. How dare you? You don't have a sense of humor.
You don't have a sense of humor. You're a fun sucker.
So I'm wondering if it's I agree with what everyone's saying, that it's so important to have fun at work. But before, we didn't consider at whose expense we had this fun, and now hopefully we're considering, can we have Because there's all kind of ways you can have fun that don't even have the potential to hurt anybody.
Of course. And I'm sure I've talked about this on one of our shows here, but
yeah,
I get asked that question all the time. What happens though when people cross the boundary? And I got to tell you, it's actually when I go in and interview all over the world, companies that are known for their high fun, high humor culture. And I always ask them that question. And they look at me like I have three heads, and they say, it's actually never an issue. And one of the reasons they stress that time and time again is you get the humor that reflects your culture. We have a very positive, collaborative, respectful workplace culture. So the humor is very respectful. So it's, when we cross those boundaries, I like to remind people it's not really a humor issue. It's a respect issue.
Culture, yeah. Well, yeah. So that's what I'm wondering as we're sitting and talking here, considering that we have become more, that those changes have taken place. Have we become more respectful, or has the workplace just become more cautious? What do you think?
Yes.
Column A and column B.
Yes.
All of the above.
I want to
Audience, what do you think? What do you think? Have we at our core become more respectful, or are we just more afraid of HR?
And by the way, I want to go back to the boundaries thing. The other thing too is every organization has a different set of boundaries. So it's not as though you can say this is the boundary, because if everyone else plays in that sandbox and is happy with it, then that's their boundary. And for you to stand on the sideline going, it should be this way, it shouldn't be that way, I don't know how helpful that is.
Yeah, for sure. And I have had companies, I did a talk a few years ago, well, and I have one coming up where the same thing was said to me. And it's not very often they make a point of saying this, but they will say, hey, by the way, go nuts with your humor. Like don't self-censor yourself, because that's the kind of culture we have. Now,
because we can take it, we can handle it.
I'm still me, and I'm not gonna go to any place that would make anyone uncomfortable regardless, right? But clearly their culture is one where their norms is,
By the way, I'm going to argue that point, because you said you don't go anywhere where you make people feel uncomfortable. Well, the way you make fun of me makes me feel very uncomfortable, and I'm telling you, teacher.
Yeah, but
Sanjay, Mike gave you a perfect opening a few minutes ago when he suggested that people look at him as though he has three heads. I mean, you could do all kind of stuff with that.
You know what? That's low-hanging fruit.
Is it? Okay. All right. Hey, Patty says, and I think this is really significant, we're more aware of what affects others. I think there's a lot to that. We're more aware of what affects others. We maybe didn't used to think or worry too much about that. People would say, as you've said, Sanjay, the pendulum swings and that kind of thing. I was last week working with an organization doing some training, and the chief human resources officer was in the room, and she's very well liked and all of that. But every time somebody would say something that, we were just having banter and it was starting to get, a little bit humorous, people would say, oh, watch out, she's in the room. Kind of jokingly and everything. And at one point she said, wait a minute. She said, I am not the humor police here.
I was just going to use that phrase.
Yeah. And she said, and she'd only been with this organization less than a year. She said, I think I've been here long enough for you to know who I am and what I'm like. And I think I know what we're like. And she said, I haven't heard anything in this room so far that even borders on anything that I would raise my eyebrows at. But, they were just laughing at that. So again, I think you got to be clear about what your culture is.
And by the way, her saying that, I think, is very significant as well, right? Mm-hmm. If people, it's like the elephant in the room, to kind of come out there and go, relax, go to town, be authentic. As opposed to people walking on eggshells.
Yeah. And it's important for senior leaders to model that.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah, and I think that's probably the best way to teach people what is and what isn't. Working. A couple of quick topics here. What about just communication norms and standards and practices and things? For instance, what does everybody think? Is it rude to call people without texting first?
Well, again, if you're looking now versus 20 years ago, there was no texting.
There was no text. There was, right. So now we have this question. We didn't have the question 20 years ago. What do you guys think? And audience, what do you think?
I have no issue.
Eric says no. Doesn't think it's okay.
Zero issue. I mean, if people don't want to answer the phone, they don't have to answer. You're not forcing them.
Right.
It's interesting because just 2 days ago, I said to my wife, somebody phoned me on my on my mobile, on my cell phone, my iPhone, without texting me first. And I was like, what the heck? Why are they giving me a like, this is not a good time to...
See, I'm with you, my friend. I'm with you, Mike. I don't like my phone to ring unless I know it's going to ring.
Yeah,
I don't like to just get called. And yet, you know, I mean, I've been around for a long time. 20 years ago, even when we had these things, you know, I was an early adopter. I had an actual car phone installed in my car. But even then, like 20 years ago, no, I didn't expect people to text.
I'm getting a call now. Should I take it? We could do a little experiment.
It's an 800 number. They're trying to sell you a timeshare. I like that.
I'm calling you, Michael.
Are you? Oh, you are.
It totally is.
I don't like to get phone calls out of the blue. That's just me.
Yeah. So here's what. But on that note, Richard, to me, this is a little bit of a difference, and maybe I'm off base on this, but the way I look at this, and certainly when I'm reaching out to people, is there are still, and a lot of my clients have both landlines and their mobile phones.
How old are your clients?
It feels more normal to phone a landline without, of course, reaching out beforehand, because there's a good chance if they're not there, you'll get their voicemail. It's just whereas if it's a mobile, you don't know if they're driving, you don't know if they're in the washroom, you don't know if they're in lunch, right? What they're doing. They're in a critical meeting, and you're just diving in out of the blue.
That's why we have a ringer, and you know, like you think it can be at a different time zone. There's a bunch of reasons, but if you don't want to answer the phone, don't answer the phone. That's where I am on that one.
Yeah, that's true. So here I have a solution for this, and certainly with people, you know, let people know your communication preferences, and when you know someone's communication preference, honor that communication preference. So I'm telling anyone out there in the audience who might call me, I'd love to get a text first, just to. Well, and I do have a colleague. I have a colleague. She's actually in Canada, and she will always text me before she calls, and I just so appreciate that. She'll just say,
"Hey, you got time for a quick call? Time to have a chat, Richard.
Yeah.
You're up for a chat." Yeah. And with personal friends, I do that. But you said something really important, and I talk about this in my book too, that one of the most simplest and most important things we could do in the workplace is to have that expectations conversation. What is your preferred means of communication? Email, text, interpretive dance, phone, in person. Yeah.
The problem is whenever you give me the interpretive dance option, you know what I'm going to take.
I know. I'm taking it every time.
Right.
So if we think about just some of the things that have changed, I'm thinking, you know, at one point, and it hasn't been all that long ago. In fact, there's still some rudiments of this there, is that, you know, if you're a good employee, you're going to sacrifice, you're going to stay late, you're going to answer those calls, you're going to skip vacation, or you're going to do work while you're on vacation and all that kind of stuff. And it's moving more toward, as we've said, boundaries. You know, PTO actually means time off. In this group last week, someone actually mentioned, she said, listen, when I'm here, I am working. She used a word that some would probably think not even appropriate. But she said, I work that off. But she said, when I'm on PTO, I have learned that I just shut everything off. And, you know, if it's a true emergency, you'll get a hold of me somehow. So, you know, it's gone from one way to another. And I'm wondering, you know, have the expectations really become healthier, or have, you know, organizations just kind of lost some of their flexibility with that? What do we think?
Sorry, and Eric is suggesting that it might be generalized, whatever it says there, generationally changing. And you know what? I'm intrigued by that comment, because I think that, things change from generation to generation without question. But I don't know if that's because the generations change, or because it's easier to implement new things when you get a new crop of people in and saying, this is now the new standard.
Yeah, but you don't take one group out and replace them with another group. It all happens, you know, one at a time kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's a chicken and egg thing. I think they kind of feed into one another.
Yeah.
Speaking of PTO, I think we have more acronyms than we did before. I think
that is definite. Yes. Vacation, PTO.
Think about all the time we save by saying LOL instead of laugh out loud. Right?
Yeah.
We should do an entire session in acronyms.
That would give me a headache.
That would be awesome.
What are some things, just some real kind of quick fire things, things that we used to do that we don't do at work? I mean, the first thing and many people on this call will not even believe this was ever a thing, but smoking at work. People used to smoke at work. I don't think that happens very much now. Certainly in any offices that I've been in the last 30 years.
As a fan of the series Mad Men, drinking at work used to be a thing. Sure.
Yeah, the idea of going. My wife tells me, that in a company she worked with years and years ago, they all went on Fridays. They all went and everybody got sloshed at lunch except for her. And then she would come back and they weren't able to do anything, and she was having to pick up all the slack.
And by the way, that some of those initiations, those group activities, if you didn't partake, you were considered to be the outsider. And
it's things like there used to be mandatory after-hours socializing, and if you didn't participate in that, you were seen as somehow not being a company person. I mean, just even off-color jokes. I just don't think I think there's like zero tolerance for that now. I mean, it still happens, but we're so much more aware of that it probably happens much less. And then just inappropriate forms of address. I mean, I'll just say it specifically. Guys saying sweetheart and honey and darling. Although I did hear the word darling used by a particular national
a certain world leader
this week. Yeah. So, but that I don't think anybody, almost nobody, would say that was okay. I mean, it might still slip. It might happen. You might hear it. But 20 years ago, it would happen, and some people would be fine with it. I think today, maybe I'm being naive, but I would think today people would recognize, no, that's disrespectful. That has no place.
Yeah. Here's one that I just wrote about too, that I think has changed, that just popped into my head and now this is still an issue for a lot of workplaces, unquestionably. However, I would suggest the concept of loyalty has changed. In the old days, and you twigged me to this, Richard, when you use the phrase "you're a company, company man, company employee," that you were loyalty had a very important place, and you are loyal to us or you're not, and
it was mutual. It was mutual.
This is what it means to be loyal. Whereas now, if you are a more enlightened organization, a more enlightened culture, you recognize that loyalty doesn't mean blind loyalty, no matter what decisions are being made. It doesn't mean being loyal to your boss at the expense of values being broken or laws being broken. So I think that concept, we have a better framing of what loyalty should actually mean.
Yeah.
I think.
By the way, look at time.
Look at time.
Look at it. Wow, it's 44 past the hour here. What time is it where you guys are? It's 44 after the hour here.
That's why Sanjay left out a word in that sentence, because he was worried about time.
I was trying to save time.
Okay, yeah. So our next party is going to be on June the 24th, right? But hopefully you will all be there. And if each of you would bring 10 of your very best friends and colleagues, then we have room for them. We have plenty of room in the group.
I think our thing maxes out at 1,000, so I think we're good.
Yeah. Okay, everybody. Thank you for being here. As always, you honor us with your presence and your comments. I learned something today. I hope everybody did.
Thank you all. Yes, thank you. Thank you for being here. Your
when
comments,
will we see them again,
questions?
other than specifically June 24th, but in general? Every other Wednesday. Bye, folks.
Bye.
See ya.